Okay, so we're going to edit this photo of Chris, a friend of mine, jet skiing, which was taken last week on the northeast coast in the UK. Now, just to talk you through this actual image, it was taken just after sunset, so there's no direct sunlight, a little bit of afterglow in the sky that was providing the light, but light levels are dipped. We're using the Canon 5D Mark III with the 70-200 f2.8 IS lens. Now, with water sports photography, particularly jet skis, we're trying to really freeze some of that motion and get some of those water droplets really detailed out there. So in low light, we had to boost the ISO. We're up at 1250 on this. At ISO 1250, we're getting a shutter speed of around 1/3200th of a second. Very rarely do I want to dip below 1/2000th, and preferably want to be above that 1/4000th and above where we can. And this was taken at f2.8, which was the maximum aperture of the lens, let as much light in as possible, and I purposefully underexposed the shot slightly to maintain the highlight detail and also to just boost the shutter speed with a view to correcting that in post-processing. So, as usual, what I like to do is to decide effectively what I want the image to look like before I start processing. In this case, one thing that I do want to do is to try and give it a slightly filmic look. We've already got the basics there because we have some orange tones in the highlights, we have some bluer tones within the shadow areas, and that's typically a very kind of cinematic style that Hollywood editors typically use within a lot of film production. So let's start with doing some basic corrections. First of all, I think that I want to make a quick edit to the horizon, which isn't quite straight. So nothing massive to do here, but just a quick tweak, just to straighten that up. There we go, and that's that done. And we'll start by addressing the issues with the sky. So I'm going to use the gradient tool here, which I am going to pull down. Not too much feather on this. I don't need to feather it too much at the horizon. So I'll pull that down to around there. And then I'm going to boost both the color temperature and also the saturation of this area. So boost the color temp, and that's made quite a difference already. Boost the saturation at the same time, and there we go. What I am going to do is pull the highlights up a touch as well, just to brighten that off. Okay. Now, in the lower half of the image here, this is actually probably best split into two. We've got this foreground area of water here, and then we have the detailed area there where the jet ski is. What I'm going to do is to use the gradient tool again, and I'm just going to work primarily on the bottom half of the image. You can see the blue tones within here. I don't want to overcook this, but I am, however, going to bring the temperature slider down a little bit. I'm going to boost the highlights. I'm going to actually boost the shadows here and add a little bit of clarity into it as well. Okay. Now, on this section here where the jet ski is, because of the fact that I underexpose the shot, I have a little bit of work to do to address that. So pressing K will bring me the brush tool up, and in this area here what I want to do is to actually boost the shadow detail within the jet ski area. So the brush needs to be of an appropriate size, and very quickly I'm just going to work over this area here. And you can see already we're lifting quite a bit of shadow detail out of the ski and out of Chris himself. It's not great. Chris has got a black ski and he's wearing black in this photo, so makes it a little bit more of a challenge. Now, when I've done that job there and I've brought out some highlight detail, if I come back and hover the cursor over the marker, I'll see the areas that I'm affecting, and as you can see from the red, I've actually drifted quite heavily outside of the boundaries of the ski. Because I'm boosting shadow detail and potentially highlight detail within this area too, what's likely to happen is I'm going to start to get a little bit of haloing. Now that's quite easy to deal with. Obviously we've seen where the details are. I can come in and press the erase brush in the right hand control panel, and that will allow me to have control over taking away some of that masked area. I've brought the feather tool here right down so the edge of the brush is very hard. If I increase the size of that brush so you can see, there's hardly any feathering on that at all. And what I'm going to do is put the brush down to a smaller size and literally just trace the edges of the ski. Go around Chris's head here. I'd normally use a much smaller brush, but I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. And in here, over the back of the ski. Now, if I come back and hover over the marker again, you should see we have a much tighter line on the ski itself and the areas that we're affecting. As I say, I can make that brush smaller, and the cutting areas just in front of Chris here where the GoPro is, they can be a little bit more accurately pulled away as well, just around there. And that should give you quite a nice, tight, defined effect on the areas that you're looking to make those edits. So we've boosted the shadow detail, we've boosted a little bit of the highlight detail, and already that actually looks quite a lot better. Now, in this area here, we really want to try and get a bit more impact and a bit more drama. So if I'm going to use the brush tool again to control where I'm doing, this is brought up. Now you can see some of the previous edits are in here. If I double click the effect key, the effect button there, it'll reset all of those sliders. So I want to pull up the highlights, and I want to actually drag down the shadows a little bit and add a little bit of clarity to this. So all of this area here is the area where I'm going to do some work. So I'll start to make some changes. Just literally brushing along here. And we'll be able to see where we are in a minute. That's probably not quite as much as I would like. I might like to lift that those details a little bit more. There's options to me. I can adjust the highlights a little bit more. I could even make an adjustment to exposure. Not quite that much. Let's have a little look. So boosting the exposure of that area. Let's just type in a value actually. Has brought out a little bit more detail, and again that then gives me a bit more latitude to darken off those shadows if I so wish. I'm quite happy with that. Now at this stage there's a couple of decisions that I need to make about actually the global look of this photo. So I'm going to make an adjustment to either the vibrance or the saturation. From experience, I know that if I hit the vibrance button in this sort of shot, I'm probably going to saturate the blues quite hard, which you can see that is the case. And I don't want to overcook the blues within this photo. So I'm only going to make a slight adjustment there. What I do want to do next is to control the curves adjustments, and this is going to give me quite a bit of fine-tuning control over the way that the image looks. Again, this is going to help me to bring out a lot of detail within the midtones of the image and also within the highlights. The blacks and the shadow details are already quite dark, but I'll have a little tweak of that and see whether or not it goes a bit OTT. No, that's okay. So the final adjustment on this image will be using the HSL tool, which is a hue, saturation and luminance tool. Hue obviously controls the general tone of the image. In these blue sections here, if I pull the slider over to the right, I'm going to go a little bit more purple, which is not what I want to do. So I'm going to actually bring this over to the left. If I pull this massively to the left, you will see the effect that we're having. Sorry, that was on the luminance slider. Apologies for that. If I come into the hue section here and pull that slider over, you'll see the effect that we're having on the actual colours within the photo. So I'm going to come slightly left on this shot. There we go. And in terms of luminance, I'm actually going to raise that by bringing the slider to the right, which will increase the relative brightness of the blues within the image. Okay. Saturation, final tweak maybe to the sky, just to boost the saturation of the oranges. And pressing L twice will then allow me to see the image within a blacked out frame, so that I can actually get a look with no distraction and decide whether or not that is how I want the image to look. That's pretty much done for me. As I say, this is not necessarily the best jet ski photo in the world, but definitely a good record of the evening. We've got some great shots. Once I've got this in place, and what I would tend to do is copy these settings and then paste them through to the sequences of image that were taken around the same time, preferably in the same kind of composition. If you need to, you can then go in and make some minor edits to tweak each individual photo, but that should speed up your workflow quite a lot. Being honest, at the time of shooting, I quite often will plan ahead and think about my post-processing. As mentioned here, I expose these slightly because I knew that's something that I can deal with quite easily within Photoshop. It got me my shutter speeds up. And I actually shot sequences of shots with the camera in servo mode, just firing off 5-6 frames per second to make sure that I was getting sequences of the jet ski in different angles, different positions. I could put these together in strings of shots into a triptych or more images bundled together, and at the same time that's speeding up my workflow in terms of my editing when I edit the start of the sequence like this and then copy and paste through to the rest of the images within the sequence. That's pretty much it for today. Don't forget to subscribe. There'll be a lot more photographic tutorials, film and video vlogs coming out over the coming months. And please feel free to comment below if you have any questions about post-processing, about this particular tutorial, Lightroom, Photoshop. I will always do whatever I can to answer your queries. That's it for now, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Don't worry about the words.